Everybody, let's take a nice stretch. Maybe a nice sigh. Breathe in and kind of sigh it out a little. In yoga, we call that releasing a pressure valve. When you make a little sound, a little sigh, because we all kind of hold ourselves kind of close. Well, anyway, welcome to Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte on Earth Day, when we're going to be talking about the earth and the environment. But let's begin by just looking around the room and just maybe seeing people that you haven't seen in a while, maybe a little wave, a little eye contact, maybe new people, smile at them. Yeah. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. I think we have 32 here and then 22 online. So we have a big crowd tonight. Well, let's get on with it. I'm going to share with you. So actually, today is Earth Day, April 22nd. It began 56 years ago. And I want to give you just a little bit of background. April 22nd, 1970, started by U.S. Senator Gaylord Nelson to force environmental protection onto the national agenda. 20 million rallied to the cause. So they purposely put it during spring break for colleges and schools, and people came out in droves, 10% of the population for the first one. By the end of that year, 1970, the Clean Air Act was enacted and the EPA was established, Environmental Protection Agency. So there was an oil spill off the coast of Santa Barbara that precipitated it. And several years before that, Rachel Carson wrote the groundbreaking book, Silent Spring, that was a world bestseller all over the world. And of course, she went after the pesticide chemical companies and was branded hysterical and a pseudoscientist and all kinds of things. But the tide changed and people listened. So sometimes you just gotta fight, right? So this series, this is the third of 4, Dharma practices for challenging issues. How we can use our Dharma practice to relate to, in this case, the environment. So tonight we're going to be revisiting Dharma practices that we already know, that everybody already practices and knows, and then we'll be looking at some new teachings. So we know that the breath practice calms the mind, calms the body, the nervous system, and the mind. What happens when we have a calm mind? Are we less reactive? Are we more responsive? Are we more able to meet the challenges of our lives and our minds and our fears with more wisdom, with more insight? And so let's not brush over the power of breath awareness practice. It is an important tool in our toolbox, really, so that we can respond versus react. So the second one that we're familiar with is the law of impermanence. So we know that there's constant change underfoot, constant in everywhere, in everything. So the environment is changing, and it's changing fast because of human contributions to that. So how many of you would bet on the survival of, will the environment survive, or do humans have to go first for the environment to survive, nature to survive? I'm betting on nature. I'm betting that it's going to survive. But yeah, it's survive means continue. It will come back to balance once the humans probably won't survive ultimately, from what the research is pointing to. So uncertainty, though, is a law in Buddhist teachings. It is uncertain. There's constant change, and really, we don't know. We don't know. We do know that we're all walking each other home. We all know that where we're all ending up, that we're all of the nature to age, become ill, and die. So that is certain. But and another teaching we know are the three poisons, that greed, hatred, and delusion. These three forces in the world exist in us and on larger stages in the world. So that desire, that greed, that lust for more and better, and yes, I have to have that. And of course, our capitalist society encourages it, right? So hatred, we see it around the world, wars, and we see it in our own lives, and delusion, just what confusion, and that these are all players on this issue. Feeding the human tendency to greed, hatred, and delusion, we can see again an individual and a large stage. So what do? We practice the opposites, and we can practice it. And as we become less greedy and more generous and able to let go versus reach and cling, as we become less aversive, less angry, hateful, more loving, more kind, we practice this. We practice loving kindness in the face of difficulties, right? And then we practice clear seeing. With our meditation practice, we're practicing seeing things more clearly, with less confusion and delusion. And so these are powerful change agents within us, and we affect everyone in our lives. So we will see this. This is also found on a large scale in the world. That is generosity, kindness, and clear seeing. The second step of the Noble Path, our prescription for how to live our lives, is right intention. And it's 3 intentions, okay? And that is letting go, again, generosity, non-harming, which we interpret as compassion, and metta, loving kindness, goodwill. And this is for all beings, for unconditionally. This is the teaching that is our North Star, our intention for living our life with generosity, compassion, and loving kindness. So we practice this. A little less familiar is the teaching on dependent origination that teaches us that everything is mutually dependent on everything. Okay, so Thich Nhat Hanh coined the term interbeing. You've probably heard that. So that we inter-are with everything and everyone. And I'm going to share more about this. I'm just kind of giving you a rundown of all the Buddhist teachings that relate to responding to this challenge. And then the elements teaching that we practiced in meditation, that the 4 elements in us and out in the world are the same. So the world feeds us, and we breathe. It's a beautiful thing that we breathe out carbon dioxide, And the plant life breathes in carbon dioxide and breathes out oxygen. So it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship, animals and plants. So I kind of want to give a quick synopsis of my Earth Day journey and thinking maybe you guys might relate to it yourselves. So in the beginning, it was sort of, rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and, let's celebrate the beautiful Earth. I mean, I started in college, learned about, greenhouse gases and the warming of the planet speeding up since the Industrial Revolution. So there was learning going on. But then Earth Day was about loving the Earth and and kumbaya, singing kumbaya and celebrating the beauty of the Earth. This sort of continued with raising my young kids, education, along with, writing poetry and trying to really love nature, and trying to wake up to nature. And also, and then the next phase was panic. We're on a runaway train here. This is, I've got to stop using plastic bags, get rid of my dryer. I got rid of my dryer 17 years ago. On my 50th birthday, I said, this is what I want for my birthday, get rid of my dryer. And I thought I was being a martyr, but it turned out that I got to know the weather patterns. Drying with, evaporation means you are aware of the environment. But just trying to do what I can and trying to, recycle, reuse, repurpose, just really trying. And delusional. This is a delusion. So these there's two New Yorker cartoons that kind of point to this. It's a man and a woman running away from a burning house. And she says, but I washed all my plastic bags. So I'm her. And another one is there's a guy laying half in a dark closet and another guy standing next to him saying, what are you doing? He said, I'm quietly reducing my carbon footprint. So, I mean, it turns out that the key, really, and I can't recommend this book enough, A Wild Love for the World by Joanna Macy. This really is, she's a Buddhist and a systems theorist. She did her PhD in Buddhism and systems theory. And this is an anthology to celebrate her 90th birthday. So it's really the key. The key is what the Buddha taught was we have to wake up. We just really need to wake up. We zoom around, we use all our machinery, we're running so fast with our time-saving devices that we don't have enough time in the day, and we're divorced from the natural world. We used to grow our food, wash our clothes in waterways, and live simply. And so we're cut off. I mean, the first time I learned about climate control, like units in houses, like there are houses that the windows don't open. They don't need to open because it's all machinery that makes it climate. It's climate controlled, And so that's really taking us farther and farther away from waking up to the world, the natural world. So we do what we can. We start where we are without judging each other. Everybody's in a different place, starting in a different way, but we find what inspires us. There's something that inspires every single one of us. And what inspires me might not inspire you. What inspires, So, I mean, I was for a while in this self-righteous place, of of aversion to anybody not trying hard enough, and judging. And that was poison in me. That was bad for my heart and mind. And it's not fair, because I can be judged. I don't have a great record in lots of areas. I mean, I do some things and I don't do some other things. So we really can't try to be perfect. So when we think of the environment, we might think of what's out there. We might forget that we are nature. We're part of nature, the elements, again, Thich Nhat Hanh says, when you look at a flower, look deeply in the flower and you can see the clouds. You can see the rain and the earth. You can see the wind, that there's some change in that flower. It's not perfect symmetry, You can and you can see that the flower is made up of so much, and as we are. Right now, what are you sitting on? If you're sitting on something made of wood, you're sitting on a tree, part of a tree. So when we start to wake up to what is in front of us, if we can, and I need to do better, but stop and look at our food and appreciate where the food came from. Appreciate, what went into that food in terms of the natural world and how it came to be on our plate. And what this all requires is slowing down. Is mindfulness practice is a practice of slowing down. And we might find that really we're in the business of growing our capacity to appreciate. Like sometimes I'll be just at Park Road Shopping Center and the sunset is just, I have to stop and look. And I can see people running around, and I can't help it. I always just say, stop, look. And they go, yeah. And then, and I'm that person. And that person is me. When we look at each other and we say, that's another me, we know that we're all capable of missing it. And we're all capable of learning how to be present. This afternoon, I got to look at a peony flower, and it's just so intricate, And if you look and bring your eyeball like an inch from it and look inside, it looks like a sunrise in there. It's just like there's deep colors deep in, and there's so much to look at. There's so much to see, and that's the teaching of the Buddha. So let's just fast forward here. This current administration gets an F for caring for the environment, as we all know. I'm going to tell you what the current state is of this Environmental Protection Agency that we've just been lauding. As of April 2026, so that would be the month we're in now, the EPA under Administrator Lee Zeldin, who became administrator in January, is aggressively pursuing a deregulatory agenda, focusing on reversing climate regulations, reducing red tape to support energy production, and shifting enforcement focus. Key actions include repealing vehicle greenhouse gas standards, dismantling the 2009 endangerment finding for climate change that was used in all kinds of policies. It was an endangerment measurement, and restructuring internal offices for increased efficiency. In other words, laying off a huge percentage of the agency. The agency's finalized rules to remove requirements for measuring and reporting motor vehicle emissions, is systematically overturning regulations meant to curb climate change, including the foundational 2009 endangerment finding. Under his leadership, the agency will focus on American energy dominance. How that falls under the EPA, I don't know. And strengthening, ready for this, guys? Sorry, I have to tell you this. And the other focus is strengthening voluntary pollution prevention programs. Okay, so guess what? It doesn't have to be this way, even on a large scale. Of course, this is a Buddhist country, Bhutan, but let me tell you, Bhutan's environmental policy framework is anchored in its constitution of 2008, requiring a minimum 60% forest cover for all time, and the philosophy of gross national happiness, which prioritizes ecological sustainability over economic growth. The country is famously carbon negative, mandating policies like 99% renewable energy usage, high value, low volume tourism, and strict biodiversity. So it's possible. It's possible. I just want to back up a little bit about this. Pratysamutpada is this teaching. The teachings of Pratysamutpada emerged when the Buddha, at the dawn of his awakening, had an insight into the nature of reality. Okay. In fact, you might say it was the essential insight that lay at the heart of everything he taught. Okay. He expressed his discovery in a curious and powerful way, saying, "This being, that becomes. From the arising of this, that arises. This not being, that becomes not. From the cessation of this, that ceases." So this is mutual dependence. The Buddha further elucidated this statement by describing two bundles of reeds leaning up against each other, illustrating that each bundle stood by virtue of its dependence upon the other. If one bundle were to fall, the other would fall as well. What was he pointing to? That nothing exists outside the nature of contingent relationships. That everything leans. In the simplest terms, this teaching refers to the nature of relationship. Cause and effect is one way of talking about the nature of dependent origination. If we pay attention, this is the last thing I want to share. If we pay attention, we'll see how we impact our environment and do what we must to live our lives in a more compassionate way. However, the Buddha took the teachings on this even further, in fact, as far as they could go, into the nature of things themselves. So I want to end with, I just want to tell you today on Insight Timer, if anybody used Insight Timer today, was a quote by Rachel Carson. "In nature, nothing exists alone." So I want to end with this David Abram he wrote the foreword for this wonderful book. And so he was driving along in his car trying to fiddle with the radio and trying to get it to work. And all of a sudden he heard this lilting voice, clear and curious voice. And the woman and so he stopped and listened, and he heard, "You know, the oxygen we need to breathe is precisely what all the green plants around us are breathing out. So what the plants breathe out, all of us are breathing in. And then what we breathe out is just what all those plants need to breathe in. Wait a minute, he said. I pulled the car off the road in order to think about this. So then he talked about how, photosynthesis and of course respiratory metabolism he'd learned, but separate. They were disconnected, just two kind of scientific things. So he said, her simple articulation in the radio broadcast never left him. It was so dumbfoundingly obvious, something I already know, although the mechanical jargon had blocked me from noticing the utter wonder of the thing. What the plants are breathing out. All us animals are breathing in. And what we animals are breathing out, all the plants are breathing in. So, thank you for listening.